Hey there, brilliant people. So today's question is, what weakens my intuition? And that's kind of an important question, isn't it? Because what weakens my intuition is kind of the opposite of what we're trying to do here on this channel. We're, trying to help you support yourself to be more of who you really are, support yourself to grow a stronger intuition. So yeah, we want to actually avoid doing the things that weaken our intuition. So because your intuition is so very much about you becoming who you really are, really anything that weakens your connection to who you really are will also weaken your intuition. In other words, if you're doing something that is really damaging your sense of self, which is often anything that is taking you away from your integrity, when you're doing anything that's undermining yourself, devaluing yourself, those things will weaken your intuition, because your intuition, you can think of it like a muscle. And that muscle is there to help you be more of who you really are. So if you're doing something that's going to do the opposite, it's going to take you away from who you really are, yeah, that's almost like you're choosing not to exercise that muscle. And so it is, over time, it is going to get weaker. And, we could talk about your ego, but the problem with the ego is that, well, maybe I should do a video about this in the future, but like in a lot of the holy texts, whatever, they don't actually really talk about that your ego is a problem. It's the false ego. In other words, when your ego is out of alignment with your values, when it's in conflict with your values, it's a problem. But when you get your ego in service to your spirit, it's no longer a problem, because then your spirit, your values, and your ego are working together. So, that's a good thing. But there is one thing that a lot of what people refer to as ego, that can be really problematic for your intuition, because your intuition is essentially, it's highly receptive. You're in this sort of state of active listening. It's like you're listening to yourself, expecting an answer. You're listening to the universe, expecting an answer. So it's like if you asked someone a question, you would be waiting for the answer to arrive. That's, if you want to work on your intuition, that's a really good place to start, is ask yourself a question and then sit, listen to yourself, expect that answer. And if you do that for a little while, your intuition will start to talk to you. So the opposite of that active listening, is actually, think of that time when somebody has asked you a question, but they're not really asking you the question to hear the answer. They're really asking you a question as an excuse to talk. So even as you go to answer them, they almost interrupt and just start telling you what your answer is. And it's like, okay then. So that is what we call projection. Like, that person is projecting onto you the answer that in their head they've decided is the answer you're going to give them. So when we are doing that with the world, when we are projecting, whether it's our fears or our hopes or what we want to be, what we want to be true, when we're sort of, in a way, in our minds, trying to sort of force it to be true. So by doing that, it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of like we're shouting at the world rather than actively listening. And yes, when we do that, it will definitely weaken our ego. It will weaken our ego. Weaken our healthy ego, that too. but it will weaken our intuition because, as I said, intuition is a process of active listening to ourselves and to the world, because really intuition is about helping us facilitate and support who we really are, hence actively listening to ourselves, and then being able to create a life that really supports us, for which we need to be able to listen to the world or the universe. So intuition is very much linked to active listening. So if we're shouting at ourselves or at the world because we're attempting to force things to be the way we want them to be, rather than being able to accept or hear things the way they actually are, we will definitely weaken our intuition. But I know that you are working to strengthen your intuition, because that will help you to remember that you're brilliant.